The wind carried snow across the Dakota plains in restless swirls, like ghosts searching for a place to settle. It was Christmas Eve, but the night held no warmth, no carols, only the long, hollow cry of the storm rolling down from the Badlands. Lantern lights had dimmed all across the valley hours before, each flame smothered one by one beneath nature's cold decree, except for one stubborn glow. A lone cabin stood half buried against the drifting white, its windows yellowed with firelight, smoke curling weakly from a chimney that fought the wind like a tired old soldier. Inside, Matt Callahan, a widowed rancher with shoulders broad enough to carry more burdens than a man ought to, sat at his wooden table mending a bridle strap. His hands worked automatically, but his thoughts weren't on the leather. They were on his daughter. 6-year-old Ruby slept in the loft above him, bundled so deep in quilts that the only thing visible was a head of fiery curls, her mother's curls. Matt stared at the ceiling plank beneath her bed, the faint creak of her breathing a comfort that anchored him. Christmas had been Ruby's mother's favorite time of year. Even after she passed 2 winters ago, Ruby still believed that Christmas kept Mama close. Matt tried to believe it too, but tonight the storm felt too fierce, too hungry. He couldn't help worrying. A sudden pound rattled the door, not the wind. A fist. Matt rose immediately, instinct sharpened by years of frontier living. Folks didn't travel in this kind of weather unless they had trouble biting at their heels. He grabbed his rifle out. Of habit, no man on the frontier would judge him for it, and stepped toward the door. The knock came again, weaker this time, almost desperate. He lifted the latch. A blast of frigid air shoved its way inside, along with a woman. No, not quite. More like the shape of one collapsed onto his threshold. Snow coated her from hat to boot, frost clinging to lashes and the edges of her threadbare coat. She looked like someone the storm had tried to claim and almost succeeded. Matt set his rifle aside and caught her before she hit the floor fully. "Ma'am," his voice softened in concern. "You all right?" She blinked up at him, eyes glassy and unfocused, blue as a winter lake beneath ice. Her lips trembled, voice barely a thread of sound. A yanker, nowhere to go. Her breath wisped in the air like smoke. The sight of her frozen, exhausted, more lost than he'd seen a person in a long time, tightened something deep inside Matt's chest. He didn't hesitate. "You do tonight," he told her, steady as a promise. "It's Christmas. Come on now, you're safe." He lifted her easily, carrying her toward the fire. She weighed almost nothing, a frightening nothing. As he set her in the rocking chair nearest the hearth, he saw the truth beneath the snow. She was young, but hardship had carved weariness into her features. Her dress was torn at the hem, shoes worn thin, coat missing buttons. Something about her suggested she'd been running too far. For too long. Matt stoked the fire higher. Her hands, white and stiff, began trembling violently as warmth returned. He grabbed a thick quilt from the peg by the wall and wrapped it around her shoulders. "Name's Matt Callahan," he said gently. "You're safe here, miss." She didn't answer at first. Instead, she closed her eyes, letting out a shaking breath as color crept faintly into her cheeks. Finally, after a long moment, she whispered, "Evelyn." It suited her soft, like the kind of name folks whispered with respect. Matt nodded. "Good to meet you, Evelyn. Let's get you warm and fed." Her head lifted sharply. "I don't need trouble. I can go in a minute. I don't want to impose." "You came through a blizzard," Matt said with quiet certainty. "Ain't no one walking back out into that." Her lips parted as if to argue, but exhaustion dragged them shut again. He poured her a tin cup of hot coffee, though he knew she likely needed food more. When she brought it to her mouth, her hands shook so badly he had to steady the cup for her. "You've been on the trail long?" he asked. Evelyn stared into the firelight, not meeting his eyes. "Too long." Matt didn't push. There was a haunted look about her, a look he recognized, the same look he'd worn after losing his wife. The world out here broke people in different ways, but the eyes usually told the same story. He set a pot of stew to warm and ladled some into a bowl. The smell of beef, onion, and potatoes filled the cabin, and he saw the hunger flash across Evelyn's face. She fought it for a second. Pride, maybe, but in the end she accepted the bowl with murmured gratitude. While she ate, Matt stepped to the loft ladder and called softly, "Ruby, stay up there, sweetheart. We've got a guest." A small voice answered sleepily, "Is it Santa?" "Not tonight," he replied. "Go on back to sleep." Evelyn glanced upward, guilt flickering through her expression. "Did I wake her?" "Storm wakes her more than anything. Don't you worry." Silence settled, the fire crackling as wind clawed at the outside walls. When Evelyn finished eating, she bowed her head, hands clasped tight in her lap. "Thank you," she said. "You didn't have to." "No," he corrected gently. "I had to. A man don't leave someone to freeze. Not on Christmas Eve, not ever." Her throat worked, emotion tightening her features before she hid it by staring at the floor. Outside, the wind wailed, ferocious and cruel. Inside, the fire crackled steadily warm, bright, defiantly alive. Matt handed her a second quilt and pointed toward the extra cot he kept folded against the wall. "You take the bed. I'll sleep in the chair if I need to." Her head snapped up. "No, I can sleep by the fire." "Really? I ain't used to beds anyway." Matt frowned. A statement like that said more than she realized. But the rancher in him, the man who'd spent years patching fences and reading the language of unspoken things, recognized a truth. She'd been without comfort long enough to forget she deserved any. He kept his voice gentle. "It's a cot, nothing fancy, but it's warm. And you look like you need rest more than arguments." She hesitated, then nodded almost reluctantly. He unfolded the cot, spreading blankets across it while she watched, as though unsure if she were allowed to accept such kindness. When everything was set, Evelyn stepped forward, hand brushing the blanket fabric as though it might vanish. "I can pay you back," she murmured. "Just get warm," Matt said. "That's payment enough." Her eyes lifted to his for the first time without fear clouding them. Something soft flickered their gratitude, deeper than words. She sank onto the cot. The firelight touched her features gently now, revealing a face that had once known hope, even joy, but hadn't seen either in far too long. Matt took the chair by the fire, rifle leaned against his knee out of habit. Though the storm battered the cabin, he felt a rare stillness settle inside him. For a while, neither spoke, but then Evelyn's voice entered the quiet, fragile and unsure. "Why'd you help me?" Matt didn't look away from the flames. "Because someone helped me once," he answered. "When my wife passed, I didn't know how to take another step. Fact, I didn't much care to, but folks around here showed up anyway. Got me through the worst of it. I reckon we keep each other alive out here, best we can." Evelyn absorbed that, gaze falling to her quilt-trapped knees. "Must be nice," she whispered without thinking. "Having people like that." "You don't have any?" Matt asked softly. Her breath hitched, and she hurriedly turned her face away. "Ain't got nobody. Ain't had for a long time." The confession cracked something inside her. Matt heard it in the trembling at the end of her words, and though he didn't pry, he felt a swell of protective instinct rise within him, unexpected and strong. "You've got a place here tonight," he said. "That's something. Storm will pass by morning. We'll figure the rest then." Her chin dipped in a small nod. The cabin dimmed as the fire settled lower, and Evelyn's breathing slowly grew even, lashes fluttering against her cheeks as she drifted towards sleep. But sometime later, minutes or hours, Matt couldn't tell, she stirred. Snow thrummed against the roof like 1,000 fingertips. "Matt," she whispered into the dim glow. "You still awake?" "I am," he answered, voice low. She hesitated, words caught between fear and hope. "Thank you for letting me stay. I don't know where I'd be right now if you hadn't opened that door." Matt looked at her, this fragile, exhausted stranger who had stumbled into his life on the coldest night of the year, and felt a deep, unshakable truth settle into his bones. "Evelyn," he said quietly, "you knocked." I answered. "World's got few enough decent things left. We can't afford to ignore the ones that show up on our doorstep." For the first time all night, a small aching smile touched her lips. And on that lonely, snow-lashed Christmas Eve, two people who had lost more than they cared to admit found themselves warmed unexpectedly, powerfully by the simple miracle of a shared roof. It wasn't love, not yet, but something had begun. Something the storm couldn't smother, something that would change everything come morning. The storm didn't ease so much as it surrendered. By dawn, the wind had worn itself out, leaving a stillness heavy enough that Matt could hear his own heartbeat in the quiet. Snow lay thick as wool blankets across the open plains, mounded against fence posts and half burying the corral. It was the kind of morning where the whole world seemed to hold its breath. Inside the cabin, the fire still glowed in faint orange embers. Ruby's soft snores drifted from the loft, while Evelyn lay curled beneath two wool quilts on the cot, her breathing finally steady and deep, nothing like the frantic gasps of the night before. Matt had barely slept. He wasn't sure if it was because of the storm, or the stranger now resting in his home. Something about her unsettled and steadied him all at once. Maybe it was the way she'd whispered those words. I ain't got nowhere to go with the kind of loneliness a man didn't forget. He stood now, stretching the stiffness from his back, then stoked the fire to life. The crackle woke Ruby first. She climbed halfway down the ladder, rubbing sleepy eyes with tiny fists. Daddy, who's that lady? Matt turned. She's someone who needed a warm place last night. Ruby's curiosity flared instantly, bright and boundless. Is she staying for Christmas breakfast? Matt smiled despite himself. We'll see. Let her sleep for now. But Ruby padded closer, her curls bouncing as she circled the cot, inspecting Evelyn with the seriousness only children could pull off. Finally, satisfied, she whispered with admiration, "She's real pretty." Matt chuckled softly. "Hush, now, don't wake her." Too late. Evelyn blinked awake, eyes squinting at the morning light. She stirred, pushing herself up slowly, as though part of her expected to be somewhere else, cold, hungry, hunted. "Good morning," Matt said gently. Storm passed. Evelyn looked around, confused for a moment, then remembered where she was. Her gaze darted to Ruby, who was standing 2 feet away with a wide smile. "Oh," Evelyn breathed, startled. "Hello." Ruby's smile widened. "I'm Ruby. Daddy says you slept here 'cause the storm tried to gobble you up. It does that sometimes." A shy laugh slipped from Evelyn before she could stop it. Matt heard surprise in the sound like she hadn't laughed in months. "Well," Evelyn said softly, "I'm grateful your daddy opened the door." Ruby nodded solemnly. "He does that. He says Christmas is for helping folks." Evelyn's eyes flicked toward Matt. Something warm, almost vulnerable, passed through her expression before she lowered her gaze. Matt ladled hot oatmeal into bowls, adding the last spoonful of dried berries for Ruby and an extra sprinkle for Evelyn. "She noticed you should give those to your daughter," she murmured. "You're a guest," Matt replied. "Guests get the good stuff." She hesitated, almost resisting the kindness, then offered a quiet thank you. They ate at the small table, just the 3 of them with the fire crackling at their backs. Matt watched Evelyn take small, careful bites, as though she was afraid to reveal how hungry she really was. Ruby, meanwhile, chattered away about her Christmas wishes, most involving ponies, snow angels, and a proper doll with real button eyes. Evelyn listened as though she hadn't heard childish joy in a long time. At one point, Ruby asked, "Miss Evelyn, do you got kids?" Evelyn stiffened, spoon stalling in mid-air. Her gaze dropped. "No, sweetheart," she murmured. "I don't." Something in the way she said it soft, aching told Matt there was more to that story than she'd ever volunteer over breakfast. Ruby accepted the answer easily, hopping down to fetch her wooden horse from the loft. But Matt saw Evelyn's hands trembling again, not from cold this time. He cleared his throat gently. "You're welcome to stay a bit," he said. "Roads ain't safe till I dig 'em out." Evelyn glanced toward the frosted window, jaw tightening. "I don't want to be trouble. I'll be gone by noon." Matt folded his arms. "You won't make it a mile in that snow. I've walked farther." "And nearly froze," he countered, her chin lifted. Pride, stubbornness, fear. "I told you, I can't stay." Matt held her gaze evenly. "You can today." Her breath hitched, surprise softening her edges. "Why?" she whispered. Matt considered his words carefully. "Because you came here for a reason. Maybe you don't know what it is yet, but I do." "What reason?" she asked, almost afraid to hear. "Everybody deserves a warm place on Christmas." He paused, eyes steady. "And because no one should walk the world alone when they're this tired." Her eyes shimmered before she looked away, but the silence that followed wasn't heavy, it was shared. Later that morning, with Ruby bundled in a red coat and mittens too large for her hands, Matt stepped outside to shovel a path to the barn. The sun glared off the fresh snow, dazzling and pure. Evelyn watched from the doorway for several minutes before stepping out, pulling the borrowed shawl closer around her shoulders. "You don't have to help," Matt said, heaving another shovel of snow aside. "I want to," she replied, grabbing a second shovel. Leaning against the cabin, he raised an eyebrow. "You look like you ain't slept right in a week." "Try 3, she muttered, then flushed at admitting so much. He softened. "Still, take it easy." But Evelyn insisted, and the two worked in comfortable silence. Ruby made snow angels nearby, her laughter ringing across the open field, bright, innocent, alive. Matt watched Evelyn glance at the little girl with a tenderness that surprised him. After a while, he asked quietly, "Someone after you?" Evelyn froze. Matt didn't press, didn't push, just waited. Finally, she exhaled, visible breath drifting like smoke. "Yes," she whispered. Matt straightened slowly, eyes narrowing, protective instinct rising fast and fierce. "Who?" "A man I was supposed to marry," she said, voice shaking. "Not by choice. My uncle, he owed money. Sold me off like I was something he owned." Matt's grip on the shovel tightened. "I ran," she continued. "Been running ever since. He'll come looking. He always does." Her eyes lifted to him, fearful, defeated, expecting him to tell her to leave now before she brought danger to his home. But Matt Callahan had buried a wife, raised a child, fought off thieves, wolves, and drought. He wasn't the kind of man who scared easy. "You're safe here," he said with quiet steel. Evelyn shook her head, panic rising. "No, you don't understand. If he finds me, then he'll answer to me," Matt said firmly. Evelyn blinked, startled by the absolute certainty in his voice. Warmth flickered in her eye-sphere, mixing with something that almost looked like hope. "But why?" she whispered. "Why would you risk that for me?" Matt looked toward Ruby, who was trying unsuccessfully to pack snow into a lopsided snowman. "For the same reason I opened the door," he said. "Because someone ought to stand up for you. And because you deserve peace, Evelyn. More than you believe." Her eyes shimmered again. No one had ever stood up for her. Not once. Not ever. She looked away, afraid that if she stared at Matt too long, she'd break right there in the snow. Afternoon quiet. The sun slipped low, early it always did in December. Inside the cabin again, Evelyn helped Ruby roll out dough for biscuits, her hands guiding the little girl's smaller ones. Flour dusted her hair, her sleeves, the end of her nose. Ruby giggled as Evelyn shook her head like a dog, sending flour everywhere. Matt watched from the side of the room, wiping down the rifle he'd cleaned earlier. The sight warmed him more than the fire. Evelyn laughing, Ruby glowing, the cabin alive in a way it hadn't been since before his wife passed. He wasn't fool enough to call it fate, but something about Evelyn felt meant to arrive that night, meant to be in their home, meant to be seen. At one point, Ruby climbed into Evelyn's lap without asking, laying her head against her chest like she'd known her for years. Evelyn, frozen certain, overwhelmed, and slowly wrapped an arm around the child, her face softening in wonder. "You're good with her," Matt said gently. Beth blinked rapidly. "I never had anyone let me be." Matt swallowed. "Well, you're allowed here." Her breath caught. Allowed. Such a simple word. Such a rare gift. Dusk fades to nights. Snowflakes drifted again by evening. Soft and lazy this time, falling like feathers rather than knives. The cabin glowed with firelight and the rich smell of roasted venison. Evelyn helped set the table, smoothing her hands over the wood, as though afraid the moment wasn't real. Ruby bounced excitedly. "Can we open presents after supper?" Matt smiled. "You can open the one from me. The rest we'll save for morning." Ruby gasped, hands clasped beneath her chin. "Miss Evelyn, do you got a present?" Evelyn hesitated, face falling. "No, honey, I'm not." "I didn't," Ruby cut her off. "Then we'll make you one." Evelyn laughed, full, warm, unguarded. "I'd like that." Dinner passed in a cloud of laughter and soft conversation. It felt easy, natural, like a family. And that scared Evelyn in a way nothing else did, because she didn't deserve this, because it couldn't last, because running was all she'd ever known. When Ruby finally fell asleep by the fire, curled in Evelyn's borrowed shawl, Evelyn carried her gently to the loft. Coming back down the ladder, she paused at the bottom, eyes distant. "Matt," she said quietly, "I should leave tomorrow." Matt looked up sharply. "Why?" "Because men like him don't give up," she whispered, "and I won't drag that danger to your door." Matt stepped closer, lowering his voice but not his resolve. "Evelyn, listen to me. I don't scare easy, and you're not facing this alone." Her eyes filled fast, too fast. "You don't even know me." Matt's voice softened. "I know enough. Enough to see your worth, and worth more than you've ever been told." She shook, swallowing hard. "You don't understand." "Then explain," he said gently. "I'll listen." Her throat worked, her breath trembled, and then, quietly, painfully, she whispered, "I'm tired, Matt. Tired of running. Tired of being scared. I just don't know how to stop." Matt reached out, his calloused hand brushing her forearm lightly. Not claiming, not demanding, just steadying. "You stopped the moment you knocked on my door." Her breath broke, her eyes dropped. to his hand, and for a moment, just a moment, peace settled between them like falling snow. Night settled deep over the Dakota plains, quiet after the storm, peaceful in a way only winter could manage. The cabin glowed warmly against the dark, a soft lantern of life in a frozen world. Evelyn stood by the window, watching snow drift lazily under the moonlight. The world outside so still it felt like time had paused, but inside her, nothing was still. She pressed her hand against the cold glass, breath fogging the pain. I should leave, she told herself. It's safer for them. Yet every time she pictured stepping into that darkness again, she broke. Something inside her longed to stay, longed harder than she had ever allowed herself to want anything. Behind her, Matt was setting another log on the fire, its light warming the cabin walls. Ruby slept upstairs, safe, soft breaths drifting through the loft slats. It all felt like a life she'd glimpsed through a dream, one she wasn't sure she deserved. Matt's voice, low and steady, pulled her back. You'll catch cold, stand in there. Evelyn turned, offering a faint smile. I'm all right, just thinking about Levin, he said quietly. She lowered her gaze. I don't want trouble finding you. Matt wiped his hands on a towel and stepped toward her, not close enough to crowd her, just close enough to show he wasn't afraid of the truth between them. Troubles found me before, he said. Found this ranch too, but it never stayed. I don't scare easy, Evelyn. Her fingers trembled where they rested against her skirt. But he's dangerous, and I'm not. Matt asked softly. It startled her. She looked up sharply. He wasn't smiling, not in pride or arrogance. His eyes were calm, steady, sincere. I have fought off men mean as wolves, he said. Protected this land, my daughter, my neighbors, and I'll protect you too, if you want that. Her throat closed. I don't want anyone hurt because of me. Matt reached out slowly, giving her every chance to pull back. When she didn't, he brushed a strand of hair from her cheek, fingers gentle as snowflakes. Let someone stand up for you, he whispered. Her breath shuddered. Tears welled, shimmering in the firelight. I don't know how. Matt's voice dropped even softer. I'll show you, but you gotta let yourself stay. Her tears finally slipped free, one rolling down her cheek. He caught it with the pad of his thumb, a gesture so tender she nearly folded into him. But before she could speak, a harsh sound pierced the quiet. HOOFBEATS. Slow, heavy, crunching, through snow like a hammer through bone. Evelyn froze. Matt's posture shifted instantly, entire frame tensing like a drawn bow. The hoofbeats stopped just outside the cabin. A man's voice rang out, muffled by the door but unmistakably sharp. Evelyn, you in there? She gasped, stepping back so fast she knocked into the table. Matt grabbed his rifle. Get up to the loft. His voice was calm, deadly steady. Take Ruby and stay low. Panic surged through her. Matt, no you can't. If he hurts you, he won't. His jaw hardened. And he ain't talking you. Another pounding knock shook the door. Evelyn, come out now. Her legs nearly buckled. Matt touched her shoulder briefly. Loft now. Something in his voice, firm, unyielding, cut through the chaos in her chest. She obeyed, climbing the ladder with shaking hands. Ruby stirred as Evelyn gathered her close, pressing a hand gently over the child's ear. Below, Matt opened the door. Cold air swept in, carrying the scent of snow and danger. A broad man stood on the threshold, coat dusted white, hat low enough to shadow eyes filled with rage. His boots were expensive, too expensive for these parts. His horse snorted behind him, stamping nervously. The man's gaze flicked past Matt into the cabin. I know she's here. Matt stayed in the doorway, blocking the view. Don't reckon I know who you're talking about. Don't play dumb. The man shoved forward, but Matt didn't move. That girl belongs to me. No, Matt said evenly. She don't. Her uncle sold her fair. She's mine by contract. Matt's jaw clenched. Ain't no contract I'd honor that treats a woman like livestock. The man sneered, hand drifting toward the pistol at his hip. Step aside. Evelyn's breath caught. She pressed Ruby tighter, tears burning her eyes. Matt's tone dipped dangerously low. This is my home, my land, and no man comes in here with threats. You think I won't kill you? The man snarled. Matt raised his rifle, not aiming yet, but ready. I think you'll regret trying. A tense silence followed, thicker storm clouds. The man's eyes narrowed, calculating. He wasn't used to being challenged. That much was clear. Finally, he spat into the snow. Fine, if she won't come now, I'll be back with papers. Sheriff'll side with me. Matt didn't blink. Then you better hope the sheriff don't ask why you're buying women like cattle. The man stiffened. Matt added, voice cold as the wind outside, and you best pray you're far from my land before you even think about coming back. The man hesitated, fear flickering, pride warring with instinct, then jerked the reins and turned away. His horse trotted off, disappearing into the pale dark dock. Matt closed the door and bolted it. Silence. Evelyn trembled so hard she nearly dropped. Ruby, she set the child gently back on the bed and hurried down the ladder. The moment her feet hit the floor, Matt caught her to steady her, but Evelyn collapsed into him instead, her forehead pressing against his chest. I thought she'd choked out. I thought he'd kill you. Matt wrapped his arms around her, strong and sure. I told you, you're safe. But he'll be back, she sobbed. He don't give up. Matt tilted her chin up, eyes steady. Then neither do I. Her breath broke. Why are you doing this? You barely know me. Matt's voice softened. Sometimes a man knows enough without knowing it all. She searched his face. Matt. He brushed her cheek with his thumb. Evelyn, you came here on Christmas Eve, beaten down, frozen through, with no one in the world looking out for you. You think I can send you back out there? You think I'm gonna pretend I don't care what happens to you? Her lips parted, trembling. I ain't that kind of man, he said gently. A faint breaking sound escaped her throat. I don't want to leave. Then don't. She exhaled a shaky breath, half relief, half disbelief, as though the words had loosened a knot in her soul she'd carried for years. Matt rested his forehead against hers. Stay here, with me and Ruby, at least until you find your feet. Longer if you want. Evelyn's heart hammered. I don't know where my place is anymore. Matt's voice dropped to a whisper. You're standing in it. Her tears fell freely now, but for the first time in a long time. They weren't born of fear, they were born of hope. Outside, snow drifted past the windows like falling stars. Inside, the cabin held a warmth deeper than firelight. Evelyn rested her hands on Matt's chest, steadying herself, steadying her heart. Matt, I don't know how to start again. We'll start together, he said. Her breath caught. He leaned down, slow and gentle, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. When their lips met, it was soft. At first a promise, not a claim. A beginning, not an end. When they pulled apart, Ruby stirred in the loft, mumbling sleepily. Merry Christmas, Daddy. Matt smiled. Evelyn whispered, Merry Christmas. And as the fire glowed, warming the walls of that small cabin on the frozen frontier, Evelyn realized something she'd never dared believe. She wasn't running anymore. She wasn't alone. She had a place at home, a man who would stand between her and the dark. And on that quiet, snow-soft Christmas night, the woman with nowhere left to go finally whispered a truth she had never imagined would be hers. I'm home.